Alright guys, welcome to the second Java tutorial, and in this video I'm going to go over some more interesting stuff. We're going to make a very simple calculator program. I'm going to introduce you to the concepts of variables and mathematical operators. Alright, so let's get started here. This is exactly where we were in the last video. We can delete that now. And the first thing I'm going to introduce you to is an int. So an int is an integer. It's like a number. Actually, before I do that, I should explain to you what a variable is. A variable is a little bit of memory that the computer stores some information in. So if you want to tell the computer to remember a name, you have to create a variable for that. If you want the computer to remember a number, you have to create a variable for that. And you have different types of variables for each different type of thing you want the computer to remember. So if you want the computer to remember a name or a word, that is called a string. If you want it to remember a number, that's called an int. If you want it to remember a number with decimal places, then that's a double or a float, depending on how big the number is. So back to where I was going. Int, this is for whole numbers, so no decimal places. And to make an int, we write int. Then we need to come up with a name for this variable. So let's call it number, very original. And we need to set it equal to something. So we just do an equal sign. And then let's pick a number. Let's go 10. End line with a semicolon, like you always have to do in Java. Now we have a variable with the name number. Type int, value is 10. Right, on our next line, I'm going to make a string. So a string is like a word or a name or anything. It's just, a combination of letters. And a string needs to have a capital S. I'll explain more about why later on. And we need to give that a name. So let's call this word equals, and then for each string we need to have these inverted commas again. And let's say hello world. End it with a semicolon again. So we've got a string here called word, and we're setting it equal to hello world. Alright, the last type of variable I'm going to introduce you to today is double. Now, there is two different types of variables that can store decimal places. You've got float and you've got double. For now, don't worry about the difference, just use double. It's bigger and it will store more decimal places. So let's say double, and let's say decimals. Or you know what, let's say double pi equals 3.1415. Alright, so now we have three variables: number, word, pi. Number's 10, word is hello world, pi is 3.1415. Now, what's the good of all this? What does all this amount to? Well, we can reuse these. So whenever we want to use the number 10, instead of saying 10, we could say number. Instead of saying hello world, we could just say word. So let's rewrite that code that we wrote yesterday, or in the last video rather. And instead of writing hello world like we did before, let's just write word. Save it and run it. Now you see, it wrote hello world. So that means when I wrote word in here, it said, what is word? Oh yes, I remember. Word is hello world. Now this works as well for number and for pi. So it's not just strings that it works for ints, doubles as well. So it should say 10, and if you write pi in there, it will write 3.1415. There. Now, there's an interesting thing we can do, is we can add things together when we're printing them out. So if we wanted to say, hello world, my name is Ed, I could add another string. String name equals my name is Ed. And then what we could do is we could say word plus name. What's going to happen here, I'll just show you what happens, right? It says, hello world, my name is Ed, with no space in the middle. So we could either put a space here at the end of hello world, we could put a space at the beginning of my name is Ed. What we could also do is add a space here. So you see, instead of referencing a variable, we just used the string for a space, and that works just fine. Okay, let's see what happens when we try to do the same thing with number and pi. Now, if it's going to work the same as before, we'd expect it to be 10, 3.1415, but let's see what happens here. Oh no, it says 13.1415. Now that's because this plus, it can concatenate strings together, hello world, my name is Ed, or it can add numbers together. Even though these are different types of numbers, it's still clever enough to work out that you're trying to add two numbers together. So you've got to be very aware of that. You've got to be very careful. So if you wanted to actually, instead of adding numbers together, if you wanted to add them together as though they were strings, you can. There are ways to do that. What I would suggest is, in the first place, instead of making this an int, make it a string, and then whenever it's a string, it will have to be in inverted commas. Same for this. So if you had an ID, for example, it's a better idea to use a string, because when you're adding it to something else, you usually want to treat it as though it's a string. There you go, 10, 3.45. Alright, let me undo that. Now, as you can see, if we've got this ability to add numbers together, we could make a calculator with this, couldn't we? I wonder if instead of plus, you could do minus. If you could do times, divide. You can do all these things. So let's test them out. So number plus pi is 13.1415. Yep, figure that out. What if we do number minus pi? Ooh, 6.858. Very interesting. What about number times pi? 31.41. So if you didn't see that, the symbol that I used for multiply is an asterisk. So that's Shift 8 on your keyboard. And for divide, we're going to use a slash. So, I mean, we could sit around and change these numbers to whatever we want and calculate things. We could even add a bit more logic here, you know, add some more numbers. So let's say what is number divided by pi times 33, and we can run that, find out what it is. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can add your own user input so that you don't have to change variables in the code. I'll see you in the next video.